That's true.
Okay, so today we're going to talk about something about Pesach, something that was some of the stuff I gave in different classes in the past. So if you heard some of those ideas, I apologize, but I think it's worthwhile. But I find it fascinating. And what I'm talking about is the fact that the exodus from Egypt seems to me like kind of the show following several rehearsals.
You mean the Marcos?
Nope.
No, okay. Okay.
So let's understand what am I talking about and why this is significant and how all that ties into Pesach. When you look at the book of Genesis, Bereshit, and you read specifically some of the stories that happened to Abraham, to Isaac, to Jacob, you get a sense that deja vu, like not for them, like when you talk about the Exodus, in Yetziat Mitzrayim, in the book of Exodus, you say like, sounds familiar, right? Story one. Abraham. There's a famine in Israel, right? One of the things so what is the covenant that Abraham gets from HaKadosh Baruch Hu? Two things. Promise of that he's going to have a lot of descendants and the land. However, once he finally gets to the land, a short while after that, what happens? He needs to leave. No, not Lech Lecha happens before. Lech Lecha is the call to go to Eretz Israel. He has to leave. Why does he have to leave? There's a famine. Sounds familiar. Where is he going? Egypt. Who? Who's the king? Pharaoh. Thank you. Correct. The name of the king. I'll take that. Okay. I have to be careful how I Terry is like a stickler for the facts. Okay. But then what happens? So there's like kind of an uncomfortable situation. Remember, Pharaoh wants to take Sarah.
He has a beautiful wife.
He has a beautiful wife, correct? But it becomes kind of very uncomfortable situation. There's a dispute there. God has to interfere. Right? God came in the dream to Pharaoh and said, don't touch that lady. Right? So God interferes. And then Abraham leaves with great wealth.
But he lied to
Yeah, it's okay.
She's my sister.
Yeah, it's okay, fine.
Yeah, he said it's my sister. Right.
But all those elements,
What?
The exact same thing in that's a story.
Thank you. Right? There's a famine in Israel. They go to Egypt. The king is Pharaoh. In the beginning, everything is fine. But then there's issues with the authorities. Okay? God interferes and they live with great wealth. Right? Same elements. Okay? Let's fast forward. What happens, by the way, to kind of like a variation on the theme to Abraham later on? He doesn't go to Egypt, he goes to Gerar, to Avimelech, right? Again, a problem. Again, the same problem because of the beautiful wife. Again, with a foreign king. And again, God interferes, right? God punishes Avimelech and all his household, negaim gdolim, whatever that means, like some sort of a disease or whatever, some affliction. And eventually they leave with great wealth. Okay, no hamol. Thank you. What happened to Yitzchak? He goes to Plishtim. Same story. Again, there's famine. He goes to Plishtim. Not to Egypt, okay, but Plishtim, but still. Again, issues with the king. Again, God interferes. um, again, he leaves with great wealth. Sounds familiar, right? It's like, okay. And then what happens with Yaakov? So this time, he has to leave not because of the famine, it's because his brother wants to kill him, but it's because of a difficult situation, let's call it. And he goes to not to a pharaoh or a different king. He goes to his uncle, but the uncle is the boss. He is the man in charge.
Yeah.
And in the beginning, everything is well, but then we have issues.
Yes.
And he tries to leave. And not only that, that boss, Lavan, chases after him. Sounds familiar, huh?
Yeah.
Okay. And then God interferes. He approaches Lavan in the dream and tells him, no, be careful, don't. Right? And then finally Yaakov leaves, and we know that he made great wealth. Four times variation of the same story until we come to the real show.
Yeah.
Later on in life. Think about it. Again, a famine. Again, the family goes to Egypt, Jacob.
Yes.
Which leads us, with all the drama and everything that we know, which leads us eventually to the real Exodus from Mitzrayim with great wealth and the whole thing. And the question is, why do we need all those rehearsals? What's the story? Why it is so important for the Torah to repeat that story in different variations so many times?
It's like grandmother.
And the reason,
It's a rhetorical question.
Yeah.
You don't know the answer.
maybe.
So would we ultimately all leave exile and go back to Eretz Yisrael? Are we also all going to be going back to great wealth?
Hopefully.
It's something to think about.
Yeah.
Bonds.
You know the joke about making the great wealth in Israel, how to make a small fortune in Israel is to come with a large one.
Yeah.
About family. This is that.
Well, there
So-
you go.
What I'm missing is what I wrote, like my papers. Okay, I'll have to do it from memory. Okay. So what is the reason for that? And I think that the reason for that is we were taken out of Egypt for a particular reason. And the reason is so we can establish a society in Israel, yes, as part of the covenant to Abraham, etc. But it's supposed to be an example for the rest of the world. A society that is based on the principles of justice and morality and the principles that we learn in the Torah. That is the plan. That was the plan. Okay? Kadosh Baruch Hu brought us out from Egypt not so we can be free. Free from what? Free for what purpose? It's to do something. Right? So he gave us the manual, gave us the instructions at Sinai, that's the Torah. And then he brought us into that land so we can actually establish as a society that is based on those principles, on those laws, on those ideas that we see in the Torah. It was a revolutionary idea in the ancient world. We can think about like all the different, a lot of the practices, a lot of the things that we have in our religion. So for example, I mean, we're talking about that just, past week. So in the Parsha, we started Sefer Vayikra, Parshat Vayikra. The whole book is going to deal with sacrifices, animal sacrifices, the offerings. And everybody is asking this simple question. Why?
You don't happen anymore.
That's, I get it, but I'm saying like, but why? What's the purpose? Why do we need, right? Different answers, right? So Ramban is talking about this idea of closeness, that you sacrifice something, not yourself, but like your possession or whatever, in order to feel closer to God, whatever, all those kind of ideas, let's call them philosophical or theological or whatever. I'm going to put that aside for a second. I think I taught that in the past. The Rambam is very, very clear. The Rambam says, well, it's not the ultimate goal. It was a step in the way. He said, you got to understand the way people in that time of history worshipped was through sacrifices. Now let's actually zoom a little bit more. Human sacrifices. And we have plenty of evidence and testimony. Even the Tanakh itself is talking about that. The Molech and whatever. We don't even know, the Indians like used to do that, it was all over, especially the Egyptians.
Yeah.
Human sacrifices, okay? Every family knew that the firstborn is going to be sacrificed. Why? To satisfy the God, at least you're going to save the rest of the kids. That was the practice in that ancient world. Comes the Torah and says, no. Now, my Rabbi Riskin, used to say all the time one thing. He used to say, you need to be a step ahead, then you're a genius. If you're 3 steps ahead, you're a lunatic.
Yeah.
Really?
Here comes the Torah, and the Torah says, this God doesn't need those sacrifices. God doesn't need that.
God doesn't need a sacrifice.
It's not on Tehillim, it's throughout the entire Tanakh.
Yeah.
Look at the prophets, all the Lama li rov zivchechem. I don't need it. So what is it? The Rambam says, to take that group of slaves in that reality of the world and tell them, you're going to worship God, this God that you cannot see, you cannot feel, through words, tefillah, it wouldn't click.
So that's why he did all this.
So therefore, the Rambam says, it was a necessary stage. That means you're going to sacrifice. Fine. But it's going to be only animals. And I'm going to give you so many details and laws and everything to do that, so it becomes very clear that it's a ritual that differentiates you from the others. For example, we're commanded to add salt to every sacrifice, right? This is why we add salt to the challah. No, the challah. Right? Why do we do that?
I wonder.
Why do we add salt to the challah?
The sacrifice of the
Because our table is a remnant, or supposed to remind us of the altar, right? And therefore we add salt, just like the sacrifices were. Okay. By the way, salt was never what the others added to their sacrifices, but rather it was honey. Honey.
Wait, what?
Honey was added in ancient times to the sacrifices. Come to Torah and says, "Kol dvash v'kol seor taktiru minu shel Hashem." No fruit, any juice, fruit juice, and no honey. Why? Because that was the practice of the others, of the idol worshippers. So to differentiate, not that. You're going to do salt because they would never do salt.
I just want to add something.
It's just one tiny example.
Yeah, I just want to throw this in, I just saw this in a Divide Torah over the weekend. Salt apparently brings out the taste of the food. Everything else that you put on
Correct.
food changes the natural taste.
That's true. And it's a nice,
I'm just-
yeah.
Just
Yeah.
an interesting thing.
There's,
about salt.
by the way, if you want to talk about that for a second, so I'll give you a really nice idea. Because, so we know that salt was a very expensive thing. By the way, we call the word salary, for example, the word salary comes from sal in Latin, which is salt, because in the early days, soldiers and all used to be paid with salt. Yeah. Salt was very expensive, and it was a very strong currency and a commodity, etc., in the ancient world. Now, let's take it a little bit to the philosophical, theological space. When we add the salt to the meal, to whatever, beginning of the meal, that's the bread, whatever, we're saying something also theological. When the Torah describes this idea of adding salt to the korban, it calls it a very specific way. Brit melach, covenant of salt. Covenant of salt. What does it mean? It means that I'm adding salt as a reminder to the covenant. Yes, I don't have the sacrifices with you, God. However, I'm still here. I'm still connected to the covenant. Otherwise, I don't understand why it's called Brit Melach. Okay, there's something, yes, our form of worship has changed, but this little gesture that I add salt is, so I'm saying, yes, it's a remnant, it's a reminder of what we used to do, i.e. add salt to the sacrifices, but it's much bigger than that, and a philosophical idea. It's my act or my symbolic act to say it's about the covenant. It's not about the sacrifice. It's not about this. It's about the covenant. And I'm still part of the covenant. And I remember the covenant. And that every time that I eat bread, I do that. Yes.
It's interesting in relationship to the creation of the United States, because in Israel, you call the United States Artsakh Habrit.
Yeah.
And now at this time, that covenant and Brit is under attack, so that a new, different
Interesting.
thing is coming.
Interesting.
The beef.
Okay. Okay. Interesting. Okay.
Creates a Habrit.
So, yes.
Is that when we kosher the meat? We do it with salt.
No, that's for practical,
That's what I.
for something practical,
Yeah.
because the salt
Takes out the blood.
takes out the blood and you're not allowed to eat blood. So this is why,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay.
Okay. Yes.
You do during.
Where does it come in, the tradition of Pesach to dip in salt?
That has to do with, in the times of the temple, they used to eat the trumot and masot. So like, some of the, okay. You're a farmer, right? You have all sorts of laws. You need to give 1/10 to the temple, to the Kohen, to the Levi, whatever. Only after doing all those donations or whatever, you're allowed to eat from your thing, right? So there's an element to eat it in a particular state of purity. Okay? Not anymore. Back then, in the times of the temple. And so we dip it because that was part of that ritual in a liquid. Okay? So we do all those things just as a symbolic act.
Do you need salt when you eat a sandwich or just Shabbos with the hummus?
The custom is to have salt whenever you say hamotzi. However, when you have a sandwich and it already has some element of salt,
Make the bread.
because not only to make the bread, whatever is inside usually have something, right? If you have, I don't know, chicken, whatever that is, you already have like, so that's, but if you have salt around you, yes, just, yeah. Anyway, we're digressing. Another example, by the way, another example of this idea that the Torah says, you know, it's temporary, but eventually we're not supposed to, just like korbanot, is, I don't know, okay, there's a lot of criticism about this law when you go to war, right? And you can take in captivity a woman, a beautiful woman, and you can take her and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Okay? Okay, let's understand what's the historic context. And what, by the way, even today, unfortunately, in certain places, what happens to population, especially women, when soldiers come in war? They rape them, they do whatever they want. They abuse them. Yeah, right? Come the Torah says, okay, that's the reality, especially in the ancient world. That's the reality. To tell the soldiers, Jewish soldiers, listen, everything is off limits, you can't touch her. It's not going to work. So the Torah says, you know what? I'm going to take that situation. I'm going to say, listen, you want to be with her? Fine. But you need to marry her. Not only do you have to marry her, you need to protect her. You cannot divorce her ever. Because what happened to divorce somebody? She's finished. She can't work. She's done. Right? So you wanna be with her? It's fine. But you need to marry her, and you need to know that she's gonna be with you for the rest of your life. Is it perfect? No. Is korbanot perfect? No. But the Torah is telling us some sort of a trajectory, trying to teach us, okay, this, what the world is doing, no. However, I acknowledge that you are here in this state, and therefore I'm going to move you from here to here. Eventually, I want you to be here. And that this is something that we see all the time in the Torah. So when we look at something, one law from the Torah, whatever, we need to understand that the Torah was given at a particular time in history as well. So the principles of the Torah are eternal. The law of them are eternal. However, we always need to remember that it was given in a particular time in history. We need to understand what was the norm in the world at that time. The Jews were not exempt from that. They were part of the society, those standards or whatever that is. And you need to move them from here to here. Many times our job is to understand, okay, if this is the trajectory, we need to understand where we're going with that. Now, back to the story of the Exodus. So now, how did we end up with there? So we have all those, okay, all that story repeats. So, what's the purpose? So what's the purpose? The purpose so we can build a society that is better, that is moral, that is based on justice, etc., on kindness, and all those laws in the Torah. Now, how can you establish such a society? Only one way. If it is part of your DNA as a nation. You need to be a slave, part of your national DNA, in order to understand what does it mean to live in the margins of society and to be sensitive to the orphan, to the widow. If it's not part of, then you're not going to be sympathetic to them. You need, and national DNA is not something that happens even in 200 years of slavery in Egypt. It's something that has to happen before, from Abraham. It's part of the narrative. It's part of the Jewish DNA. Abraham had to experience that in Egypt and again in Gerar, and Isaac had to experience that, and Jacob had to experience that. And what does it mean to be a foreigner? We're going to talk about it in a second.
Yeah.
In order for that to translate into a real national DNA that will develop that sensitivity that is needed for such a society to exist and what we expected to build. Think about this idea of being a foreigner or an outsider. Abraham was born in Ur Kasdim. Most of his life lived in Haran. Then Lech Lecha, and he goes to Israel. He is an immigrant. Yes, he did very well, but till the last day of his life, he was an outsider. He was not a native. When he buys the plot for Sarah, he said, Ger betoshav anochi imachem. I have a green card. I'm not a citizen. It maintains a certain sensitivity towards the other. What happens in the next generation? Okay, so Isaac is a first generation Israeli, Sabra. Okay, but it's still the first generation. So he grows up with all that, his parents' baggage. He speaks the foreign language, he understands the customs, it's still close. And in order to maintain that sense of being an outsider, a stranger, immigrant, what does Abraham does? He makes sure that Isaac's wife is an immigrant as well. When Eliezer asked him, should I bring somebody local? He said, no, don't bring anyone local. It's not that Lavan, they believed in God. No, they were idol worshippers just like the local girls. All the Chitim and the Yevusim and the whatever and the Knaanim and all those. What's the difference? If you're gonna convert her, you're gonna convert her. What's the difference? No. Specifically, Abraham says, you go and you get me somebody who's gonna be an immigrant.
This is really weird, because in the situation that we are in now, our non-Jewish president, who has one of his daughters is a Jewish convert, that he's married to an immigrant.
So
It's weird. What the pattern?
His grandfather was in America, in America.
Well, yeah.
You might be.
It's great time.
then let's take it to the next generation. Jacob, he is a Sabra. He is an Israeli. His parents are Israelis. He could feel totally comfortable, and he's not going to have that sense of sensitivity towards the other, the outsider, the people in the margins of society. Therefore, what happens to him? They sent him to exile. They sent him to Haran to develop that characteristic. to develop that sensitivity, to feel himself an outsider.
That's
And of
right.
course, he brings his family, they're immigrants also. So this is how you, and then the whole family goes, and again, to go to Egypt. So this motif is there all the time, from the very beginning, because you need to be,
Strong.
no, you need to build a society, you need to develop that national DNA that will allow you to build that society that the Torah commands you. Without that, you can't do that. It's a must. So therefore, the story starts already from Abraham. And you have to go all through those experiences, which seems like a mini Yetziat Mitzrayim, rehearsals before the big thing. Okay, fine. Let's take another step. When you look at the story of Yetziat Mitzrayim, you can compare it to another story that took place about 450 years prior to that. And I spoke about it. I know some of you were in those classes. The story of Abraham, specifically Lot, and the destruction of Sodom. If you look at the story of the Makot and all the Yetziat Mitzrayim and all that, and the story of the night of the Exodus itself, the language used there, I had here, if somebody wants to look it up, it's like, so the language is the similarities, the same language is used also to describe the destruction of Sodom. It actually goes a little bit before that. I gave a shir about that. I know that Daniel was there like years ago. I don't know if you remember. I claimed that the first matzah was invented 450 years before Yetziat Mitzrayim, right? If you think about matzah, that's the symbol of Yetziat Mitzrayim, right?
Didn't Abraham give the angel matzah?
Not Abraham, but Lot,
Oh, okay.
right? If you look at the Torah, you'll see the first time the word matzah appears is by Lot, Abraham's nephew, when the angels come to visit him. In Sodom, they're telling him they're going to destroy the city. He bakes matzah for them.
And it didn't have any meaning that the matzah.
I would like to say that, yes. Because what happens? I'm going to try to crunch like a whole shiur into 3 minutes. Remember the dream that Abraham had at La Brit Ben Abetarim? He has the vision where he basically get those promises of the land and of descendants. Okay, that vision. The rabbis tell us that vision took place when? The 15th of Nisan. That's not me. That's Rashi. That's okay. Then, fast forward, the three angels coming to visit Abraham, right? The famous,
Yeah, I heard that.
that's the 15th of Nisan. 1 year after that, again, exactly on the 15th of Nisan, what happens? Isaac is born. What is the 15th of Nisan? Pesach. Great. When the angels come to visit Abraham, what happens? He gives them food. What kind of food? Ugot. Not ugot matzot. Ugot, cakes. And if you look at the Radak over there, he says, why? Because it was Pesach and he wanted to avoid chametz. What? Okay.
I didn't know.
Oh, he did. So he gave them meat, he gave them milk, he gave them whatever, all that kind of stuff. He gave them cakes. Then what happens in the story? What happens in the story? So they tell him, right? The three angels tell Abraham, whatever they tell him, you're going to have a son, blah, blah, blah. Remember the story? And then two angels continue to Sodom. They go to Sodom, they meet Lot. Okay? And Lot gives them what? Matzah. Umatzot afa vayacheli. Look at the Mefarshim there. It was Pesach. This is why he gave them. Okay, now let's put it all together. When Bnei Israel leave Mitzrayim, it says ugot matzot. Kam Rabbeinu Bechaye says this is the ugot from Abraham, matzot from Lot, come together in the ugot matzot of Bnei Israel of the Exodus. Now, here's my theory. Back to the revelation, to the story, to the dream that Abraham had in Brit Ben Abetarim. What happens there? Abraham has this dream. In that dream, God tells him, you're going to have the land, you're going to have descendants, all that kind of stuff. Abraham decides to mark that event as a, let's call it a family, a holiday, a tradition, call it whatever you want. One, I don't know why, but one of the elements is matzah, unleavened bread, period. Who lives with Abraham at that time? Who else?
Oh, the guy not
Oh,
yet.
his,
Lot. Lot is still there.
Yes, Lot is still there, yes.
Lot is Abraham's nephew, the nephew that he adopted. Not only that, up until that point, like a couple of years later, when the angels are going to come and tell him you're going to have your own son, Abraham is convinced that Lot is going to be his heir. He has no children. He's already 90.
Yeah.
His nephew is going to be his, right? So Lot takes upon himself the traditions of the family. And if we have a family tradition that on the 15th of Nisan, we eat matzah, and so even when he leaves the house and he goes to live in Sodom later on, he continue keeping that tradition of the 15th. Not only the 15th, the week, I eat matzah. Now, so when the angels, how long does it take for the angels to walk from Beersheba, where Abraham was, to Sodom? Not for angels.
They fly there.
Even, by the way, even if you walk,
oh,
it's a day and a half, it's 2 days. It's still Pesach.
Right.
It's still Pesach. If they were by Abraham on the 15th, so it's the week of Pesach, they come to Lot, he makes for the matzah.
we walk in camels from.
They had whatever. They
And,
had something. Whatever. Okay.
Bye.
So now that's the story of the matzah. Now, if you compare the language of the destruction of Sodom and the Makot and the story of Yetziat Mitzrayim, you will be shocked of how many words and expressions are in both. If anyone wants, I have it here. It's shocking. It's not coincidental. I think that the Torah is very deliberate. Okay? I'm going to tell you in a second why. Now, in a week and something, we're all going to be sitting in the Seder. And in the Seder, I get it. A lot of people are not really with us by then because it's late, it's towards the end. And it doesn't have a great tune. So this is kind of like not the greatest, but it's there. There's a piyut, there's a song called Ometz Gevurotecha. V'amartem zebach Pesach. Oh, yes. Yeah. Most people are like, I don't know, we skip that. Okay. Anyway, it's there. Listen to what we're saying. Okay. There's like, I just took like 3, I think it's 6 stanzas in that song. Here's 3. Listen to this, just the English. The boldness of your strong deeds did you wondrously show at Pesach. At the heat of all the holidays, did you raise Pesach? Okay, you revealed to the Ezrachi. Who is the Ezrachi? It's Abraham. Midnight of the night of Pesach. What is the midnight dream of Abraham? Is the Brit Ben Abetarim. It's that vision that he had. We said it was Pesach. Next stanza. Upon his doors did you knock at the heat of the day on Pesach? That's when the angels come to visit him. He sustained shining ones, or i.e. the angels. He sustained the angels with cakes of matzah on Pesach. And to the cattle, blah, 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 blah. Fast forward. The Sodomites caused him indignation, and he set them on fire on Pesach. Lot was rescued from them, and matzot did he bake at the end of Pesach. Do you think that the poet made this up? I don't think so. I think he knew exactly what he was writing. So there's a direct connection from the story of Abraham, Lot, the whole thing of Pesach, the dream, the visit, going to Lot, the destruction of Sodom, to Yetziat Mitzrayim. And the question is, what do you want me to learn from that? What is the connection? Just give me a second. And what is it that we're trying? What is it that the Torah is? I mean, obviously the Torah is pushing me in a certain way, want me to understand something. Okay, let's go back to that war. Remember the First World War? A short while after Lot separates from Abraham, there's a war. 5 kings against the 4 kings. What happened to Lot? He's taken in captivity. Thank you. And what happens? Abraham hears that he's taken captivity. He puts together an army. And he goes and he rescues Lot. Great. He goes and he wins. And the king of Sodom tells him, you can have whatever you want. And what did Abraham say?
I just want what you can get stuff to White House wants.
I don't want anything. Abraham, why? It's yours. I don't want. From Lot, I'm sorry, not from Sodom, I want nothing. Remember, it's the same Abraham that when he left Egypt, gold and silver and cattle, no problem. Sodom, stay away. Okay? There's a hint here. There's something. Sodom was a bad place. It's the worst place. It's so bad that God says it's beyond repair. I need to destroy the place. Therefore, Abraham, the same way, Abraham says, I don't want anything to do with that. Okay, fine. What about Egypt? They were bad to us. They took advantage. But you know what? They were not as bad as Sodom.
Yeah,
Ever.
well, but
Ever.
but some of the commentaries said they were the 49 day of impurity that they'd say.
That's us. That's not the Egyptians. I'm talking about the Egyptians. What happened to the Egyptians? Okay, they were nasty to us. They were enslaved us. I get it. All that kind of stuff. But Abraham tells us, I took the gifts from them. Later on, when Bnei Israel leave, they leave with great wealth. Okay, let's fast forward for a second, because the Torah doesn't just tell us stories. The Torah tells us stories that has implication to us. So what does the Torah says about the people of Sodom? Who are the people of Sodom? Remember what happened to Sodom. It was destroyed. The only survivor is Lot and his daughters. So remember the story in the cave, and what happens? Ammon and Moab. You can marry them ever. Ever. Why? Because Sodom represents everything we reject. Going back all the way to Abraham. Says, I don't want anything from you. And the Torah translates that later on into they, no matter what, cannot become part of Am Yisrael. What about the Egyptians? Yeah, Egyptians fine. Somebody wants to convert, want to be part of Am Yisrael, welcome. No problem. Abraham understood that. He took wealth from them. The Torah says, fine. If they decide to become part of the Jewish people, go for that. Not only that, we know that Begam, the Erev Rav al Imam. Exactly. Now, what do they represent to us? I mean, Mitzrayim was bad, but apparently Sodom is worse. So again, you see the trajectory. Sodom is absolutely no. Mitzrayim, bad, but depends on the circumstances, you know. If this is the trajectory, we need to take it to the next level. Torah says, you go this way. So we have to be better than the Egyptians. What happened to Sodom? What is it that Sodom represent? What is that Chazal called Midat Sodom?
I think there were they were welcoming to other people, wasn't it?
Evil?
What does it mean, evil? So the rabbis have something very specific. They say, Sheli, Sheli, Shalcha, Shalcha. What is mine, yours is yours. I'm not going to give you anything, and I'm not expected to take from you anything. That means when somebody comes to visit and they look for a place to stay, the angels, no one is going to take. It doesn't matter how much you're willing to pay. Even you're willing to pay $1 million for a night, no one will take you home. Egyptians? Yeah, you're going to pay for it. Eventually, I'm going to make you into my slave, but I'm not going to let you die in the street. That is the difference. Sodom is the worst. You can die in the street of hunger. No one is going to give you anything. Why? Because mine is mine, yours is yours. The Egyptians, yeah, they're bad. They're going to say, you're going to pay for it. I'm going to give you food. I'm willing to share it for a high price, but I will share my wealth with you. That's a little bit better. And we're supposed to be the next level. That means we're supposed to take care of those in need, even when they're unable to pay us back. Just a second. And that ties into that society that we're supposed to build. And for that, you need to build a national DNA. So now we understand like the story of all those mini Exodus, the idea that all the forefathers had to experience this theme of being a foreigner, of being an immigrant, to develop that sensitivity. Now we understand why this is so important, because the Torah says, look at Sodom, look at Mitzrayim, and I expect you to do better, to be better. And that is the reason why I'm taking you out of Mitzrayim. I'm giving you the book of rules so you can start establishing that society in Israel. That's it. Yes.
Fourth part of this story is last one. Could you put her into your commentary, what you've been saying so far, her role? And
With her, it's very simple. The angels are coming to rescue the family. The meaning of that is you need to leave everything behind. You're starting new. Are you willing to do that? Not only in a practical level. Here, mentality. Remember, Lot married a local girl from Sodom.
tell me more about it.
We don't know much about her, but she's from there. Okay, we can assume that he achieved his status. He became a judge because of her. He married into the right family. Let's call it. Okay, but the point is, so how was she punished? Remember? She turned back and because that's symbolic,
But we can.
but it's symbolic. Why? She turned back. She was not willing
To leave.
to move on, to cut, to make a cut. Leave that old world behind you with everything that it means, the values, the philosophy. It's not only the possession, it's the philosophy, it's the values, it's the traditions, it's the education, everything leave behind. If you're willing to do that, right. But if you're looking back, you can't continue.
And so how did the salt theme exact, what's the meaning of this?
What is salt?
salt?
What do we know about salt? What do we what do we know also about salt? It stays forever.
It's what?
Stays forever.
And it's a cleanser.
It's a cleanser. It's a cleanser. So you take out, so it's perhaps it's a symbolic idea of like she's not continuing. We take out whatever doesn't fit. You have to stay there, and it's a reminder forever. She's left behind forever. Yes.
So I have like a related but somewhat off-topic question. Abraham makes a big to-do about who his son Yitzchak is going to marry. Likewise with Yaakov. But except for Yosef, the other Shvetim all married local girls, and but nobody's making a big to-do about it.
Because there was nothing important to report. We can assume, because that was the practice of the ancient world, that once you marry into a family, you become part of that family and you leave your family behind, right? You assimilate into that family. We can assume that that's what happens with the Shvatim. And if that's the case, that's fine. With Yehuda,
Yeah, well, what a story, yeah.
exactly. It was a different. So there was a reason for the Torah to tell us about that, because that took a different turn. Now, when it comes to Yosef, well, that was not even his decision.
Right. that's-
Pharaoh made that decision for him. We can assume, by the way, the Chazal are going out of their way to describe her as a tzaddiket and whatever, and she took care of Yaakov and blah 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 and all that kind of stuff. Why? To kind of help us understand that within, like, in spite of the fact that she was probably Egyptian royalty.
Well, there's a medrash that she was.
Dina's like, whatever. But even without that,
Yeah.
but even with Pshat, we can assume that she was like some sort of a, royalty, Egyptian royalty. She completely assimilated into Yosef's family.
Right. And we see with Batya that she's got the right, characteristics, shall we say.
She had the right characteristics of distinguishing between right and wrong and that kind of stuff. This is why the rabbis in Midrashim, say that she also became part of Am Yisrael and she's this and she's that, whatever, all that kind of stuff. Okay, these are Midrashim. But, okay. So, with that, I want to wish everybody a Chag Hashanah Sameach. Hopefully, we're in the month of Geulah.
Yep.
So, see what's going to happen. Everybody's looking at Trump. Miri, how are you feeling?